Okay, so in a perfect world, this all works correctly. So, 2024 Warframe. I guess you should talk about what sparked this. So, I watched the Nightmare Frame video, where he like went over his tier list, and I realized, whoa, we're in the season where everybody like starts making their tier list content. And like thinking about it, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. I can't wait to like watch them, and then I'll be like, they put they put Equinox where? What the fuck? Like I could do that, but then I thought about it, and even when you don't like agree with an opinion, I think it's a little bit more important to kind of just like just observe and then kind of form like how you feel based on like what you're doing. Jargon, rhetoric, I'm just saying words at this point. So, the way I kind of want to structure this, it's a tier list because like it's the easiest way to kind of get my thoughts across, but it's not like really a tier list. It's kind of how I feel about the characters. I'm kind of this opinion that I don't really care how good or bad the character is as long as it feels like they feel nice. Like as long as the gameplay feels good and you're getting what you're supposed to be doing well. Like if you're doing it well, then I think that's good. So, just to like kind of throw something out there. I think a perfect example of like you're just doing what your frame is about well is like our newest character site. So, I kind of think that site is really good. He came out in 1999. He's one of the few frames who feels like he has a good passive and four good abilities while also having a nice little theme going. His whole like design philosophy is you need to hit these headshots, and like if you hit the headshots then you get all these rewards, be it more damage or your bullets ricocheting or just having your invisibility increased. I think those are all really good. And then he has a good passive with his crit chance going up, even though I feel like crit chance passives are like kill me. Like I actually kind of hate crit chance passives now. Like I'm kind of a hater. But in terms of what he's doing, he feels really good. I wouldn't really say that Sight is like one of the best characters in the game. He is like very strong. And he does like his thing well, but I don't necessarily think oh Sight is like I couldn't go oh Sight's top 5. Or like what's that thing that we all do? We go he's an S tier or he's like an A plus. Like I don't really think that adds a lot. I think it's more important that we go, yes, Sight is the sniper weak point Warframe, and he does that thing really well. So that's kind of how I want to structure this whole thing, and I guess we can get into some of the characters now. I don't really like going in order. That's kind of boring to me. So let's just go for it. Um, let's go with Excalibur. I really like Excalibur. So as we're gonna like as I get along with this, I don't have like any planned out thing. I'm just kind of spitballing. This is all off the top of my head. Excal. So Excalibur is really interesting because when it comes to Excalibur, we kind of have a divide where we have to talk about him and then Umbra. When it comes to the Excalibur kit, let's just say the Excalibur kit is really weird. So he has slash dash, which is its own little build around, which is kind of cool. You go invul, and then depending on what your stat stick is modded for, you can do fuck shit amount of damage. But it's really interesting, and one of its main problems is that his shields aren't really covered, even though he's invul. But that's you can if you're building around it, it's less of an issue. Um, and then Radial Blind is like pretty good CC. It actually has pretty nice range. The range on Radial Blind is shockingly really nice. Not a lot of people talk about it. I think it gets to like 40 meters or something crazy like that. But yeah, like that's just with a range mod. I could think you get to like 40 meters. But yeah, you have a lot of enemies you can blind, and it does help a lot when it comes to not dying. Like surprisingly, because despite what people tell you, light CC is not as bad as people think. Um, Radial Javelin is, in my opinion, not a great ability. When you pair it with the augment, it becomes good, but that kind of gets us into one of the overarching themes when we get through this, is that going when we put an augment on a thing, making it good, that doesn't feel great to say. And then of course Exalted Blade is like, that's for most people, that's like the thing you're trying to get on Excalibur for. So what are his problems? Well, it's a couple things. Well, first, just talking about like the base kit, he doesn't have really any form of survivability. And when it comes to Umbra, it's a little bit different because Umbra, like, they obviously want you to use the three Umbra mods, and you can get a bunch of health and armor that way. But it's not when it comes to health tanking, which is going to be another thing that comes up a decent amount. When it comes to health tanking, you kind of want to also have some form of DR in your kit. Like you want like some form of DR, some form of healing. He can get like a when it comes to the healing aspect, he can get it. You can actually like heal through a lot of the game mechanics, well, mechanics quote unquote, but like through outside means. Um Panzers with Hunter synergy is like really nice because like the Panzer is constantly getting you like damage and then like you'll kind of sustain yourself that way. And then Arcane Reaper is something you can put on. So that can kind of you can kind of deal with that, but no DR on a frame that doesn't have like ludicrous amounts of armor is like it's kind of like it's not perfect. You wouldn't really want to kind of play that way if you didn't have to. You'd really prefer if you had like some form of DR built in. And then that's just applying to Umbra. So if you're on basic Scal, it's like you don't really have any like strong way of doing it because like the next best thing would be, shield gating. And shield gating on the character who has like his energy drain over time ability is like kind of whack. And you can say, oh well, you can use radial blind. Sorry, it escaped me for a second. You could use radial blind technically, and then like you'll also be CCing enemies while you do it, which is fine. It doesn't feel great in my experience. I'm not really a fan of it, but of course that's just me. And then going back to Umbra, the next thing, like other than like the bugs and like how ridiculous it is that they expect us to use an augment to stop the Umbra bug is like genuinely beyond me. But other than that, then you start getting to like mod slot economy, like you're on Umbra and assumably you're gonna be health tanking, so like you're gonna have the whole suite of like the three Umbra mods, chromatic blade, like most people are using like the chromatic blade builds with his four. So you got all that. So that's like already four mods. If you want to put adaptation in there for a little bit of extra damage resist, then like that's another thing. And then it's like, well, now we only have like a few mods left to put on our build, and then you have to start going, maybe I don't need this, maybe I do want this, and it's like it becomes a whole thing. I think what I would really want them to do is maybe incorporate some way. Maybe you can do something cool where it's like on regular Excal, because we have already like Radial Blind and Radial Howl doing. They have two different animations, so you can maybe go with they do two different things. Like on regular Excal, it does something shield related, whereas on Umbra, it does something health related. That could maybe be interesting. Um, I've heard a couple times people go, maybe when he gets a kill with his Exalted Blade, or just gets a melee kill, this should be his passive, by the way. Because I think at current his passive is like 10%, 10% attack speed on melees. Or not even melees, on like sword melees, which is like wow. Wow, you can like smell the age on that, but like I don't know. I think maybe if we could get something like um you get like 10 overguard, that's something that I've heard come up, or get some shields back. I'm more of a fan of like he gets shields back if you're Excal, and then he gets like stacking DR if you're Umbra. I'm kind of a fan of that. I think that would be pretty sick. Or at the very least, like buffing that attack speed passive. I mean, 10% attack speed is like nothing, and you don't feel it. You really don't feel it. And especially since that's his only passive. It's like, uh, yeah. So that's like the main things, and then there's like other things that I think can maybe be addressed, like Excalibur kind of has a thing that isn't as prevalent with him, but becomes a real issue on a lot of other frames, specifically with the Radial Javelin augment, where the Radial Javelin augment should really just be what Radial Javelin does, because Radial Javelin is like genuinely not great. It's not a great ability. Um, I can't think of a world where like it by itself is that good outside of like Star Chart, and even then, like you can use any other caster because at least then you wouldn't be spending 75 energy a pop to like stick enemies to walls, I guess. I don't know. I feel like we could maybe incorporate the augment into the base ability. That would be pretty nice. But yeah, when it comes to Excalibur, I think he's fun. Like I think they really nailed the fantasy of you are going to be the sword guy with a magic sword that shoots out like projectiles. I think they like nailed that. I think we just need to um kind of help him. Just help my mans. Help my mans. Uh one more thing. I'm of the opinion that all exalted frames should just be able to use everything. Um I don't think there really is a reason for exalted frames not to just have access to every single melee thing for the sole purpose of your exalted ability should feel like this thing that only your character can do. It should feel better than using any regular melee. Maybe like top end things like Incarnins, I guess you could say. Like maybe the hate deserves to feel like just as good as like an exalted blade. But I think if we just kept this, like if we keep the idea of these exalted abilities are like linked to the frame, they're like the special thing only they can do. I think it is fair to go just everything works, like all the set bonuses, like the gladiator set. Um I feel like you should be able to put augments up there. Um a big thing, something that I heard I think Bruzheim say not too long ago was how exalted abilities, especially the melees, kind of feel like they're a little bit held back by and like just in a lot of really weird ways, like especially in concerned with mods, which isn't something I thought about, because when you think about it, every melee gets to put on a stance that gives you what 14 more polarity, whereas all the exalteds just like don't have that, so you just have 60 space. And then they also recently gave them um the Exila slot for melees to put like the Tennokai stuff on, and then they didn't do it with primaries, which is like a whole nother thing. But yeah, I would like Excalibur to get help. Who's cool? I like Caliban. Caliban is one of those where I think he's like near perfect. Caliban's aesthetic of being this like sentient guy who's like commanding a legion, after the rework, it works out pretty well. Um, he's not really hurting. I know a lot of people don't like Razor Gyre, which is one. But I think Razor Gyre is a good ability, and it's really what I think a Warframe ability should be, where especially like a quote unquote a worse Warframe ability should be, which is even if you don't like it, you can't necessarily say that it's a bad ability. You just don't want to use it, so you put on a helmet. I think that's a really good place to be. Like it's not a bad ability, just it's not for everybody. Um, but yeah, Caliban, he's pretty cool. I think they did a really good job with him. The summons are cool. His four works pretty nicely. The damage, the Tau damage that he puts on enemies, like really helps shape his identity. I think they did a pretty good job with him. How do I be a hater? How can I be a hater? Mm-mm-mm, mm-mm, mm-mm-mm. So a lot of people really like Ember. A lot of people like Ember, and I sometimes cannot understand why. So Ember isn't bad. Ember is not a bad character, but I think a lot of what Ember is doing is really weird. In fact, I don't think she should be in like Rework Me Please as much as she should be here. So Ember is a caster, and her whole thing is supposed to be she's trying to balance her immolation level so that way she gets the extra perks from it. So her one gets more damage, I believe. um her two, just like the immolation itself, gives you more dr. Her 3 strips armor better, and then her 4, I think it gets more damage and it gets like AoE ticks from like the rings of fire that get spawned. Which is all well and good. And I think like the problem with Ember has a lot to do with Healing Flame. I'm actually a really not a big fan of Healing Flame. I don't like Healing Flame at all. So they gave her a DR ability with Immolation, which is fine. She can tank with that. But I think the problem is that Healing Flame giving you Overguard just to make like she's a caster, so you're gonna be spending that energy anyway. And combined with Immolation being kind of clunky, and in reality a lot of the benefits of Immolation not being great, it just kind of makes you go, do I really need it? You know? Like Healing Flame can cover your your survivability through the Overguard, and then you can kind of loop Overguard and shields and just kind of refresh it like that. And then you don't have to deal with, oh, what if I overheat? Which is another whole can of worms of why is it a bad thing if you overheat as the fire character? Wouldn't that, isn't that, shouldn't there be like some type of risk reward system in there? It's weird. I think a lot of her issues can be solved by doing a thing to Immolation. Like just do something towards Immolation that kind of makes it more worth using, because what it does now is okay, but it kind of feels like an afterthought in many cases, especially I don't mean to just go, oh, put a helmet on for something better, but Immolation doesn't really do a lot. Like it's not like when you look at other powers that you can kind of compare to this, like Redline, which I think is the obvious one. If you look at Redline is like so integral to what Gauss is doing and gives so many like different little buffs and synergies to his kit. And Immolation just doesn't do that. Immolation is nothing like that. So I wish they would maybe look at how that ability works so that we can kind of get to something better on her. Oh, I got water. I got water. Okay. There's somebody who's just like, okay, so I'm going to, you gotta like watch how you talk about frames in this community. I am not saying that Loki is amazing, and I'm not saying that Loki is bottom one garbage, don't play him. Loki Loki, in my opinion, is the tankiest character in the game. He has access to both stealth and invulnerability with the augment, which is really strong. Like he is genuinely just like the hardest to kill character in the game, in my opinion. I think the issue with Loki is that that's kind of it. And if you know what you're doing on most of the characters in this game, it's not hard to die. Like it's less active, sure, and it's easier. Like you don't have to do as much because you just like pop your invis and then like your invis for like what 25 seconds, and then you do switch teleport, and then you're like invul for like 25 seconds. Like that's fine, right? That's fine. But why do that when I can play somebody else who maybe has like if I wanted invis, I could get on site and then I could also just have good abilities. And decoy has its uses. You can do like some cool stuff with decoy. But I think like the main thing is that it kind of feels like you have decoy and then you live. That kind of feels like it. Like your invis and your switch teleport aren't doing much else other than keep me alive. And then decoy is just like there, you know? Decoy is just there. It kind of stinks. It kind of stinks, you know? Like you can do some again, you can do really cool stuff with decoy. Something I was kind of testing out is like mind control with like decoy and stuff, and like maybe using like all the new arcanes that we just got to maybe like help decoy and maybe like switch your little play style with Limp or with Loki. I think what we really need for Loki is to just see him get a rework. I recognize that you can level cap with Loki very easily, and I do think that's good. But I think it would be just as good as if we could level cap with Loki and then also we have a good kit. Like like you look at like his augments and it's like these are cool, and then you look at like his passive and it's like this doesn't really do anything. Like there's cool stuff to him, but at the end of the day it doesn't change the fact that all your character really does is go invis, which is good. Like invis is broken, but again, you're not doing much else other than that. And to some players you don't have to do more, but to that I say we can have that and then also some flavor on the side, you know? And I like level capping, don't get me wrong. If like I don't mind my characters being one note. It is okay for a character to be one note, but he's like one note in parentheses bad. Like I'm not a big fan of Loki. I don't think he's terrible, but I do wish he got a little bit more than he has. Okay. Um man, the weird thing about playing this game is that like I like the characters. I like just playing the game. So like I look at these characters and I'm like, wow, I really don't want to hate on you, but you got some stuff I don't like. You got some quirks. A little bit of quirks. Let's go with Ash. So Ash is a cool character. I think Ash is really interesting because there's the thing that we all see, the thing that like most people know him for is, oh, he has like all these different ways of getting a lot of damage, and he's like really good at like killing problem units, and that's all well and good. Like Smoke Shadow's cool, like his aesthetic is cool, his passive is pretty good. Shuriken can be made good with the augment. But I think like the big thing with Ash that I really like is there's a lot of variety in what you can do with him. There's like the Mark for Death setups. You can use Blade Storm, you can just be a weapons platform. There's like a lot you can do with Ash. I'm gonna put Ash here. I think he's pretty good. Um, he like fits. He does really well at being like a ninja frame. I think like the only thing. I want to change my tiers a little bit. Oh, actually no. I'll just put him in near perfect. I think the only thing you really need to do to Ash is bump up some of his duration. Like I think I'm not a big fan of smoke bomb like just being like what I think it's 12 seconds at base, which like makes it really rough when you're building for duration. I don't know. I think it's 10. I think it's 10 seconds at base, which kind of is a funky number when you're trying to like primarily always be invis. I would also kind of like it if he could just teleport anywhere. I think that would be pretty cool, similar to how Galera's teleport works. I think that would be pretty nice. But yeah, other than that, Ash is pretty cool. Good. He's good, good. Man. Let's go with Ureli. So, Ureli Discourse. So, I'm one of those people who thinks Ureli is like a pretty good character. I think like there's so little about her that's bad. Like a lot of people don't like riding Marilena and then they released an augment that's like Marilena doesn't suck to use. um her one is pretty good. Her passive's really good. Her two, with the augment. Like if I think like my big thing is that I would like them to kind of fix Meryl. It's really hard to though. Like fixing Marilena would require them to like kind of rethink how the controls work and how like K Drive fits into the game. I'm kind of with like just using Marilena with the other augment where you actually ride it, but you get like a bunch of buffs. Like I think that's kind of cool, but that's not to everybody's taste. Aquablades is pretty alright. Aquablades really I think is maybe the weakest part of her kit. It doesn't really do much. And then Riptide is a nice little grouping tool. So I don't think she needs all that much. Maybe like a couple things, but she works pretty well. You can really tank by just like riding Marilena around. You get like invul for getting on and off of it, I believe. People say you can't like cast helmet abilities while you ride it, and to which I just say like get off of it and then cast it and then get on it. I mean, obviously that's not. I get it, but like still, it's not that big of a deal to me, especially when 90% of people who play Ureli don't even ride Marilena. I think she's fine. I think she's fine. She's pretty okay. Titania is literally one of my favorite frames in the game. I adore playing Titania. I think she's really fun. And a lot of people will just go, "Oh, you just ride around her." Whoa. Well, ride around my Titania. Okay, but a lot of people just like hop on Titania and they're like, "Yeah, let me blitz through this capture fissure and then I'm gonna get off Titania," which she is pretty cool. I think she has one of the most fun exalteds to just be in since it's like a movement one. Um, why am I like rework Titania? I it's weird. I don't know if I should go. She should be in rework me or if she should be and needs a couple changes. So if you actually play Titania, she has good abilities generally. Like her one is really nice. It gives you status and vol. Her four obviously is like what she's kind of designed around, which is fine. Lantern is kind of I'm not a big fan of Lantern. So it's like this weird grouping slash AI manipulation tool where you can like target a space and then like enemies kind of they're like, oh my god, look, pretty colors. Lantern's kind of mid, and then her two is like four buffs, and I think this is where like a lot of the clunk uh comes in with her. So the buffs aren't bad. Well, excuse me, two of the buffs are pretty good. It's off the top of my head, it's minus 50 accuracy towards the enemies, plus 50% evasion for yourself. And then I think one of them is like plus companion damage, and then the last one is like something super irrelevant that I cannot for the life of me think of. I think like a simple tap hold for these, like you get two of them, or just like have it be like you have to do specific things. Because the nice thing about it is that each of the buffs lasts 2 minutes, so even DE knows that like nobody wants to like cast those. Because there's like this weird thing in her kit where like her razor flies will go pick up the buffs. I think what would be a little bit cooler is if like the buffs were represented by the razor flies and like she was more about like getting more of her butterflies up and then having those butterflies on her will get her the passives. So maybe if it was like if you get like status kills with your Dex Pixia or if you get headshots with your Dex Pixia, like something like that which where you can just like get them in a better way, or it can also just be as simple as like uh I cast it, I get all four, or like I cast it and I get two, and then I hold it and I get the other two. Something like that would work fine. Um, but yeah, and then like Dewata is like not great. Like you have to do like a lot of stupid shit to make Dewata feel nice. Dewata is not great. Fun fact for people who don't know: did you know that her razor flies are her razor flies are like pseudo exalteds, and they take into account your your Dex Dewata mods. So like that sounds really cool. This is like a me thing. I would like the razor flies to like actually show their damage, so that way you can like have your razor flies be like priming for you. That would be pretty cool, but instead they just like do their damage, but you can't really see it because the game doesn't show you their ticks. So it's like, oh, cool tech, I guess. So yeah, patching up like those in her kit, I think would go a long way. A lot of people still probably wouldn't play her. Like she does a lot of damage. She can do fuck shit amount of damage, but yeah, it's not for everybody. And then obviously, you know, let Dex Pixia and Dewata use arcanes. That would be nice. Give Dex Pixie an Exilus slot. That would be pretty cool. But yeah, that's Titania. Hero. Hero's cool. Hero's like a really cool character. At this point, I feel like I can kind of blitz through some of these. So, Hero is a really cool character and is a really good support. I think he has like just two issues really. The first one, he has an augment for his one that just makes it so your teammates can trigger the effects of his two and his two and his three. So my proposition, okay, what if that just wasn't an augment and that was just what his abilities did? For the simple reason of Wisp can put down her moats. Okay, Wisp can put down her moats, and she gets her team like if they step on it gets like the health, um, they get the regen, they get the fire rate and reload speed, and then they get the electric AOE. And then like penance gives you what? Fire rate, reload speed, life steal. So basically the same things as like haste mode, but they can't just have it. It's really silly. I I think that's really silly. I think that's really goofy. So yeah, I think the teammates should just get that. I think that would make him do like that would make him like way better. And then the other thing, I would just add like another thing for Penance to do. Like Penance is good, but like it's also a fire rate and reload speed buff. So I feel like if Penance just did like one more thing, like something cool, maybe if it was like also holster amp, maybe if it was like a holstered speed or excuse me, vigorous swap, one of those, similar to how Toxin Elemental Ward works. I think that could be cool. But yeah, Hero's good. Hero's good. Not bad. Not a bad guy. Uh, you know, I'm gonna be honest, it's kind of tough. This not going in order thing. Let's talk. I want to talk about some good characters. I like talking about the good characters. Um, Trinity's pretty decent. So she just got the rework. Um, Trinity is not in a bad place. She like as a support, she like anything extra you give her is just like, oh please, I love it. She's like a really competent shield tank, believe it or not. Put on a redirection and then just like you have your link, so you're getting like damage redirection, and then blessing is giving you uh damage resist, and then like you're kind of set. I mean, shields innately have 50% DR. Link is I think 75. I think it's 75, and then blessing is another 65. You're kind of chilling, kind of chilling. There's some things I would like to see, like maybe it's really minor. Um, I'd like it if Link at base, because now it scales with strength, which is cool. I think if Link at base targeted 4 enemies, that would be way better. Because I think my Trinity is at like I think right now it only has 3 enemies at base. So I think with my build, which is like something stupid, I think my build is like really stupid, but I think I'm at like 400-ish strength after like everything is said and done, after all my things stack up. And with that, I think I just hit like 12 enemies with my Link. And it's like, what if she was just a walking armor strip, you know? That would be pretty fun. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Champion's Blessing is like a weird augment. I wish that Champion's Blessing worked if your shields got regens. That would be pretty nice. Because now what you have to do if you want it to be consistent is putting on like combat discipline. But the problem with combat discipline is that you have all this DR. So like even with like a maxed out combat discipline, you're getting like 1% of your health back every time, which is like trash. It's like you're damaging yourself by 1, and then like I think you need to hit like a kind of big number for Champion's Blessing to give you a lot of benefit, and it's like it's not worth it. It's not worth it. Also her passive, wow, it makes it sound like I don't think she's all that good, but yeah, her passive is kind of like it's all right. It's alright. It's not really that crazy. It'd be cooler if it just buffed the team's energy bar in accordance to how much energy she has. That would be a little bit more interesting. But just giving them like max health is like, yeah, not a fan. Not a fan. Not a fan. Okay. Um, Hydroid. Hydroid's like rockin'. Like Hydroid is like shockingly a really fun character to play. So it kind of got everything. Even though armor stripping isn't as good as what it was pre Jade Shadows, which if you don't know, I'm gonna introduce an idea to you guys because I know everybody's like a viral and corrosive fan. So here's an idea. So if armor means less, right? If armor means less because enemies are less tanky with their armor, then the things that strip armor become slightly less relevant. Which doesn't mean it's bad. It just means that not as good. Food for thought. Food for thought. But anyway, yeah. Hydroid, even with that, pretty cool. His passive is like really nice. A lot of people will be like, "Oh, but you can use green shards." Well, I don't have to use them. I can just not use them, and I can make those shards other things. But yeah, uh, his passive is really good. His one makes him like a shockingly really fun caster frame, which wasn't what I was expecting. But Pirate Man with artillery missiles is really fun power fantasy. His two, I think is what a lot of people subs him off. I'm a big fan of his two. I like just it's like a really fun movement tool. I think that's really valuable. I think his augment for his two is like really funny because its only effect is that your two becomes 12 energy to cast. It's an efficiency mod for your two, and it says that it gives you like status immunity, but like he already gets that. No, it says that he gets a cleanse when he uses it. But he already has a cleanse if you just use it without the augment. So it's like, why does this ability exist? But other than that, I just think that's funny. Plunder, really cool ability. It has this weird thing where it like, I believe if you do it and you hit like a really good plunder, and let's say you get to like 500% corrosive, um, if you do it again, you don't go back to that 500 even if you still have the timer up. You'll just go to a lower number, and it's like that's annoying. I would hope that what they do is change it so that you just go to whatever your highest plunder number was. That's pretty much it. That's like the biggest complaint I have about Hydraid. His four is cool. Loot ability, crowd control ability. Um, it's pretty good. So yeah, good character. I don't think there's like much you can do to Hydroid at this point. Now like if you for frames up here, I think now like the biggest things you can do are like minor fixes, maybe introduce some augments, just add some new playstyles, just spice up their kits with like for example, Caliban here. I think he really got like some sauce when you added all of the mods and arcanes that benefit having summons. Stuff like that goes a long way of like kind of spicing up and putting some life into some of these characters. Okay, okay. Who's next? Um, I kind of keep looking at Revenant with dread. I don't want to talk about Revenant. I really don't want to talk about Revenant. Uh, Gyre, Gyre. I feel like I need to kind of start speeding through some of these. I feel like I'm just yapping. Water. Okay, so Gyre, pretty cool character. Her aesthetic of being like this weird caster gunzerker is kind of cool. Um, Electricity is like shockingly a good status effect. It's like one of the better DOTs, I think, after all the math. Like I think it ticks faster than everything else. While also scaling or not scaling, but being able to be applied and like keep its stacks faster. And I think they also multiply with each other. Really interesting. But I feel like a lot of times Gyre struggles with armor, which isn't as much of a problem anymore because there's ways of like shredding armor pretty consistently. And you'll hear people go, "Oh, we just use pillage," and the reason why that happens is because Gyre both like wants the armor shred and she also wants some survivability. So her abilities are good, like they're there. I think she might be one of those. I'm not an expert, but I think like the problem with her is that either the numbers aren't big enough or she just needs like one more thing. Like just put one more thing in there. Um and I think one of my issues is that I'm saying all this and that's after you put in like the augment. That's after you put in what is it? Cathode current. That's after you put on the augment. And it's like, wow, we put on the augment to be a good character, which is like, I'm not a fan of that. So, what I would hope they do is maybe add an effect to um, one of her abilities where it's like, per tick you get a little bit of shields back. That could be pretty cool. And then your main problem that you need to solve as your character could be how do I get past enemy defenses as opposed to I need to not die and also I need to not die and I need to kind of shred the enemies. So I think that could be cool. She's not bad, not definitely not bad. Needs like maybe a little bit of help. First, when I go to like start talking about Revenant, like everything just fucks up for me. That's really awesome. But I guess to kind of recap what I was saying, I think Revenant is a weird case where he doesn't need a rework, but he also does need a rework, in my opinion. Like, on one hand, it's just an issue of his synergies not being very good. Like, Reaving Thralls could be made to be pretty interesting. Like, Thralls themselves are like a pretty cool thing to have. But I think the main issue is that like you have Reeve where one of its like main things is that it's like taking like the life force of the enemy and adding it to yourself, but then it's like, okay, I do that, and I also just have Mesmer's going up, so it's like whatever. I don't know. I feel like they kind of need to look at what his design is. Like if they want to do like this undead character, like this like reanimated character that's cool, like a not to like say vampire, but like pseudo vampire-ish kind of character. I think they would kind of need to look at like I'm not specifically calling for Mesmer skin to get nerfed as much as I'm like if you're going to have Mesmer skin, then I feel like more of his kit should be like design with that in mind as opposed to like Reeve basically doing nothing other than its synergy with Enthrall. Like you do the percent damage, but you can also shoot gun, you know? It's like a 75 energy cast at based and yeah, it's like a whole thing. I'm not a fan. I think they can make it cool, but I think they have to kind of go hard in the paint. Okay, Nova. Nova after the rework is like amazing. Um, very little to complain about when it comes to Nova. I think like the only thing I would criticize is maybe the functionality of molecular prime could be made into just like baked into the ability as like a synergy as opposed to making the synergy an augment. That would be pretty cool. But other than that, she seems pretty fun. I've been having a good time with the rework. I think they did a pretty good job on it. Okay. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. There's so many characters, and I feel like I'm not like talking about them. Let's just do some easy ones. Rhino. Rhino is in like a really good spot. Like the only thing you can say with Rhino really is that like his one is like whatever. Like Iron Skid is great. Uh, Roar is great. Stomp is great. CC. Um, like there's really little that you can really say. Like maybe making Roar recastable without the use of an augment could be cool. In general, actually looking at like some of his augments, like the Roar augment is like shockingly terrible. Like the Roar augment is really bad. But yeah, other than that, I mean, he's looking good. He's like Revenant but cool. But yeah, but Rhino's in a pretty good spot. Uh, let's go with Baruch. So Baruch is weird. Because like he has anti synergy, and I don't know if that's like intentional anti synergy because it's like your two is like trying to sleep enemies, but then your three is also trying to disarm them. And like you need to use your one to like lower your restraint gauge so that you can use your four. And like it feels like purposeful anti synergy, but also like there's some like parts of it where I'm like, maybe we can like kind of change how this functions. Um, I think his one is something I would maybe look at. Like he's great, right? Like once you actually get to your four, which is kind of what your entire like kit is trying to get to, and like it thematically makes sense. Once you like actually get to your four, you do like fucking crazy amounts of damage. Uh yeah, you do like a lot of damage. You get like the DR from it, and you're just like super tanky. I think like one thing I would maybe like is maybe make his one like maybe tweak the numbers so that you can use it while moving because there is cool stuff you can do with his one, even that for most players that's kind of what they're like getting rid of. There is cool stuff you can do with this one, especially with the like, yeah, with the new augment. It's like you can get some pretty nasty crit damage with that. And then obviously like standard please like touch exalted characters kind of thing. It's kind of stupid that exalted characters just don't have access to all of the things that melees and primaries have been getting over the years. It's like you give us arcanes, and then you give us these new mods, and then like sometimes the new mods just don't work. You can't use like the scope mods or crosshair on primaries and secondaries. It's really dumb in my opinion, but yeah, just that's really what I have to say about him. Like he himself is like okay, he's pretty good design. Um, Dante. Dante's cool. Dante's really cool actually. All of his abilities feel good. They feel meaningful. Um, it does like feel like wizard power fantasy, like you're casting all these spells and like you're like doing like you're trying to like cast them in order and then get like your different spells. They're pretty cool. Noctua, even though it's what most people subsume off, is actually a really good exalted melee. Being able to use the tome mods is really nice. I think the only thing I would say for Dante is maybe some like the same general like exalted buffs. Again, just give him all the mods. It would really help him specifically because if he had an Exilus slot, he could use one of the tome mods. Um, like one of the tome Exilus mods. He could use that on his build, which would be really nice. Really nice. Hmm. Um. Okay, fuck positivity. I kind of want to hate. Who can I hate on? Hmm. It's really tough because it's not like most of these characters are. Oh wait, you. Okay, so there's Corvex discourse. The Corvex discourse is like now a thing, and I think that's the funniest thing ever. I am not going to pretend to be a Corvex expert. I like got him. I played him for like 3 hours, and then I was like, wow, this feels horrible, and I chucked him into my helmet, and I never got another one. Um, from what I understand though, there's like a lot of flaws with this character. A lot of people will tell you that there isn't. But I think there are like some, even if like regardless of how good or bad he is, I do think like some of the main things to take away is it feels like a lot of his kit just doesn't have effects. Like he doesn't. A lot of characters will have like synergy with their kit. Like they'll have like a bunch of synergies with like what their things do, or their abilities will just be bloated, which may be a problem, but at the very least that means that you have like a lot of different things you can do. Like you look at I guess like obvious comparison, you look at something like Corvex's 3, which gives him I think it's Diosymmetric Guard. It gives him like all of these status immunities and it's like okay, that's cool. It's fine. And then it just doesn't really do anything else other than like you get more stacks of it as you get like I think it's like kills with his 4. And that's like cool. It's all right. It's not bad. But like that's all you really did for like 75 energy and it's like there's other frames who can do way more, you know? Like and it's not to go oh like all abilities need to be like equal to each other in some way, but you look at something like Steinax's rally point, which is giving you like shields and energy and shields on kill. Like that's really compelling. That like even if you can say that maybe some abilities do too much, but then there's abilities like that where it's just like it doesn't do enough, or how his grouping tool doesn't always work properly, um, or like the pitiful range that it kind of has, um, or like the general state of like how expensive all of his abilities are for how much you need to cast them, and like the payoff not being the greatest thing ever. It's just a lot. I kind of feel like Corvex needs a full on rework, but that would like I want to like preface this with the rework tier is something where I feel like you can't just tweak these abilities and then go, okay, this is a good frame. I think rework tier is for frames where you have to like full on change like massive parts of them. With Corvex, you can I would want to rework for him, but you there definitely is ways to make what he does better. You can like lower some of his energy costs like in a similar way to what they did with Ember. You can lower some of their energy cost. You can add a couple like little bonus effects to some of his abilities. So I'll still put him in needs a couple changes, but he's like much closer to rework me please than like a lot of these other frames in here. Like I don't know, I'm not the biggest Corvex fan personally. Uh, well, I guess because I mentioned Steinax, Steinax is pretty good. It's like actually really good. A lot of people, he was really popular when he first came out. Um, I don't know. His kit is like really good. You have like grouping with your one. His passive is actually really nice. I think it's like bonus crit chance per like shield that you have, which is pretty cool. Um, his three is great, rally point, giving you all that energy, giving you shields on kill. Even though most people use his four with the augment, which kind of like makes it a little bit irrelevant to have shield on kill. If you are on builds where you don't really care about that, or if you're trying to maximize his passive, that's really nice. His two is like a really nice little armor strip. Uh, yeah, overall he's just like pretty solid, just good character, good frame. I think like the only thing that's gonna really change him, like over time, is of course when he starts getting augments, since he is a little bit of a newer character. But yeah, it's Dynex. Um, okay, now here's somebody who's like really near and dear to my heart. Nidus was at one point my favorite frame, and I love playing Nidus, but like playing Nidus is like one of the most mind-numbing experiences while playing this game. I am so tired of telling myself that I'm having fun playing Nidus because it's like it's rough. It's rough. Like you get on Nidus and you're like, "Oh wow, like you have to like build up to like getting your fourth up and you're going to have all these little perks and benefits and you're going to be pseudo immortal and it's like that's cool and then in practice you're like stomping the ground and you're 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 stomping the ground and it's like that is cool and when you inevitably get to your max stacks that's like really nice but man. So there's a couple issues. So all of his abilities are like fine. His abilities aren't bad. That's not the issue. It's that there's always like a couple flaws that just make them that start to build up that make them feel a little bit worse. Like virulence is like really cool as like your little as like the thing that you're trying to do, but it takes so long to build up your stacks, especially if you're on the augment, which puts your max stack cap to 300. It like takes so long to build up your stacks, and it's fine for a character to be better in endurance, but you have to just keep doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it, and it's like it gets really tiring. Larva is like nice. It's a nice grouping tool, but I like many people have like said it in other videos, but Larva is one of the worst grouping abilities in the game, especially when you compare it to things like Larva's big selling point is that oh, you can just do it wherever. You just target an area and you just do it and then enemies get pulled in. But it has like some of the worst range, I believe when you compare it to Airburst, which is really similar to it, Airburst you can cast Airburst faster, A, but also you can get them there. You can group up more enemies at a time. B, or not more enemies. You have a bigger range, which in turn like lets you group more enemies. When you look at things like Ensnare is like way better like I don't know. I'm not like the biggest fan of Larva, and then the biggest problem with it is that if an enemy is still alive in it, you can't recast it unless you use the really bad augment, and it's like, wow, they really hate me. Um his three is definitely his best ability, being able to give a teammate strength or being able to get the DR from it is really nice. I'm glad that he is a character focusing on his health and armor that actually has a DR ability because there's a lot of other characters who do that and just don't. So yeah, I'm really happy that he has that. And then his four is like nice. Like obviously, like it's cool to go domain expansion and like put a big like area of infested stuff where you want. And it's nice like being able to stand on it. You know, you get your health over time, and then you get like the maggots, and you can detonate the maggots. Like that's all well and cool, but it's like he feels a little outdated. Like a lot of his things that you could give him would be really quality of life, like maybe double how fast he gets his stacks, um, let larva just be recastable, increasing the based range of your link target, and then making his domain like A bigger and then B like spawn more maggots at a time. That would be really cool. But yeah, he just like it feels weird. And then also he's not as big of an he doesn't struggle as much as other health tanks when it comes to survivability because of his passive. But there's like a lot of weird things involved in it. If you're trying to take him into endurance, which is like what he wants to do, then you have to like spend a lot of time like building stacks because you're gonna be like downing every couple of seconds, to be honest. And if you use your passives augment, which lets you stack to 300, but then your respawn or your revive like excuse me, your revive like breaks every 30 seconds. It's like so now you're not really DPSing with your one. It's like that's a whole thing. And then there's like mod slot talk where it's like because he's a health tank, if you want to like stay alive so that you can take advantage of his one augment, you have to commit a lot of like mod space to keeping him alive, which is kind of annoying. There's like a lot of little things that kind of build up over time. I would like to see him get like a few buffs. He's not bad, not a bad character by any means, but there's a lot of things involved with playing Nidus where it just makes it kind of sucky. It kind of sucks sometimes. It's hard out here. Okay, on the opposite end of the spectrum, Citrine is like, oh my god, I love Citrine so much. Citrine is like my favorite support in the game. I think Citrine is really fun to play. They knocked it out of the park with her abilities. Every single one of her abilities and passive genuinely feel great to use. You get a lot of little buffs from them. You get a lot of synergy. It opens itself up to a lot of different play styles. There's not really anything I can complain about. Citrine is great. They really cooked with her. Uh, yeah, let's do Verona. So Verona's actually in a really good place. After the bug got fixed with her new augment, like which the new augment is like the funniest ability ever because it's just the mecha set. But after that got fixed, it's kind of like she's just good. She's just a really good melee frame. I feel like not a lot of people talk about how good Verena is. Like you can do a lot with this character. She has like the invis. She can put a bunch of status effects on a bunch of enemies. She can nuke. Her four is like where a lot of people like kind of make decisions in their build pathing, but you can either use it or not, and it's still like gonna be really nice. You can replace it with something else, or you can just use it as your with its augment and like just kill a bunch of enemies with it. It's not bad. I would say Veruna's in a pretty good place. Okay. Home, home. You gotta watch what you say when Kome is in conversation because everybody has an opinion on her. So I think that it is important to note that Kome is patently a frame that kind of is better the longer you're in a mission. I think everybody can agree with that. She gets better over time. And I understand what the grievances are from a lot of the player base because some people are like, well, I think you should be able to get your things faster and be able to pick them. And then her abilities don't feel like they do a lot. And then other people are like, well, no, in endurance, like the priming is really nice. And sometimes your three can be better than Mesmer Skin. And as you like get more decrees, she just gets more and more and more broken. And I understand both sides to me without like choosing like either stance because like I enjoy both like just on like most people are doing what like level 150 ish content is at their hardest and then like other people are like level capping. I am of the opinion personally that Kome is fine and she needs some tweaks. She needs some tweaks. Well, the first thing I would like just think that everybody can agree on, while she can have the cooldown in between like getting her decrees, I would really wish that while you were doing the challenge, your cooldown started ticking, so that way you didn't have to do like maybe it takes like a minute to do a challenge. Let's say like at worst it takes like a minute to do one of the challenges. You're doing that challenge and then you have to wait 2 more minutes for like your decrees to like let you get another one. And that doesn't feel great. That really doesn't feel great. I think if they just made it start ticking while you were doing the challenge, that would alleviate a lot of the issues. Or maybe just like um lower how long it takes in the first place. That would be nice. Another thing I would like them to do, I understand like the argument that her one is great for condition overload because you can like prime with it. I understand it, like especially when you hit the triple sixes, it does feel really nice when you have a gun with CO on it. I will say it doesn't feel like her one does a lot in most cases. Like even though we can say objectively you are getting a benefit from it, especially when you don't get triple sixes, it feels like you just casted your one to cast your one, which doesn't feel really good. Her three, that's kind of up in the air. There's a bunch of changes you can make to it. I am not a fan of the change to just make it Mesmer skin, but there's like a lot of things you can do with it. Her four, I would say, is probably like not her best ability, but it's her most complete ability, I want to say. Like what it does, for what it does, it is pretty good. Um but yeah, Kome I think just needs some quality of life changes, like that kind of wave 1, wave 2 type of changes that a lot of the characters have been getting. Think how like Zaku was terrible on release and then like after a few updates Zaku was like, "Ooh, this is kind of nice," kind of thing. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on Kome. Frost. So Frost is looking pretty good. He started the year pretty mediocre. He's ending the year pretty decent. You see Frost players all the time, I feel like. Yeah, Frost is really good. Cold just being way better is pretty nice. Bubbles are still bubbles. His four is great. Using freeze force on a bunch of frozen enemies and just like, or biting frost, I think it is actually. Biting frost on a bunch of frozen enemies, getting all that crit and crit damage is so nice. I think the only thing I would say now that they should look into is looking at Ice Wave because Ice Wave is still like one of the worst abilities in the game in my opinion, and I would just like them to kind of look at that. I'm gonna put him in needs a couple changes because I feel like what they could do is maybe like take some of the power out of his four because when you're on Frost now, you kind of just are a four bot. You're just like running around like using it, getting the over because it like what it like freezes all the enemies, gives you overguard, it armor strips, and it's like that's like a whole kit on his four. His four is like a whole kit. So I'd like them to maybe like shift some of the power away from his four and maybe put it into Ice Wave to kind of balance him out. But other than that, he's pretty good. Um, or Grendel. Okay, so Grendel is like not bad. I feel like the Grendel rework didn't get as well received as something like the Hydroid rework. Grendel is like pretty good. I think he has like a singular issue. And his one issue really is like, yeah, his one issue is like the enemies die too fast. Like the when he goes because his whole thing is that he has to like eat the enemies first and then he can like spend them on like his abilities. I feel like what should happen is that because I think he can hold 5 enemies at a time. I think one of them should always just be immune while they're in his stomach. He should just like keep them there. Like that would be good because that way he could like spend abilities without them like all taking damage over time and like dying in 2 seconds, and it's like, dang, I can't cast anymore. I have to like go eat again, and then I have to go cast again, and then I gotta go eat again, and it's like that's kind of annoying. So I think if we did that, he would be in a pretty good. He would be way better. Might even put him like right here because he's not bad. It's just like that one thing. Like frames up here, I'm kind of like you don't really need to change much, if anything. Maybe like tweak something very slightly. And then frames like in this tier are more so. Oh, we have a couple things that we want to maybe work out. Wisp, Wisp, easy one. Wisp, I feel like maybe has fallen off a little bit, and a lot of people I've seen have kind of been like, oh, well, it's just, what does she really add? You know, she's kind of like just a fire rate buff, just breach surge, and then she goes invis. I think all those things are still really good though. Like that's still really nice. Um, I think if anything, if we were gonna change her, just adding some spice to her kit would be really nice. She's kind of just like put some motes down and then like jump a lot and then use your two to be invis and like get those immunity frames. Like she kind of feels like that, but she's still like really good. Like there's not much you need to fix with her. I'm not the biggest expert when it comes to her four, but I have seen scenarios where you can get some pretty decent damage with her four. Maybe if anything, for her to change her, maybe like bump up some of her damage so that it's a little bit easier to build into that playstyle. That could be cool. Because like that's like the obvious thing people complain about, right? They're like the power fantasy of ripping a portal into this from the sun doesn't feel as good as it should be, but that's kind of all that you really need to do, in my opinion. Yeah, she's looking pretty good. Looking pretty good, pretty good, pretty good. Mm, Hildren. Okay, so Hildren's weird. Because on one hand I want to be like she's like this cool tank, and then on the other hand I'm like pillage. I mean, well, to be fair, the new augment for her four is really nice. It like makes actually using balefires really cool. It's really fun. I'm a big fan of it. I think now what we kind of need to look at when it comes to Hildren, now that we've like kind of made her four like something worth using, we need to look at Haven, man. Like Haven does not feel good. Haven does not feel like the best ability. Like it's I don't know. It might just be me, but it doesn't feel like Haven does all that much. Like you're giving your team better shields, which is nice, but then it's like draining your shields, which is kind of whack. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like we need to just do something about Haven, and then maybe we're cooking with something. Like do something about Haven, and then like, oh yeah, speed up how fast Hildren moves in her four. Like she moves so slow, and it's really annoying. Like you get on like Jade and Titania, and they're like moving decently fast, and then you get on Hildren, and she's like kind of just waddling all over the place. Like if you speed up those, but then other than that, like she's not doing bad, especially with that new augment. That new augment like makes her balefire way more fun to use. Calervo's like perfect. This is like he and Varuna I feel like are like the premier melee frames. Calervo just kind of has it all. Wrathful is amazing. His two being like probably the most fair form of overguard in the game. Uh, Collective Curse is like a really cool ability. Sniper Calero is like so based. I love his four. A lot of people aren't using his four, but his four, especially with the augment, basically being able to move around like Yuta's domain is like so sick. It's so fun to use. And it like boosts your combo count. He's so fun. Calervo is great. All we do now is give him augments, give him new play styles, and then yeah, Calervo's perfect. Calervo's really good. Mirage. This is not Mirage, that's Zephyr. Mirage is weird. So obviously, Mirage does way, 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 way too much damage. Uh, and that's like kind of just good enough. Like her one and her three, like just being like these crazy like damage increasing abilities is so nice. Her four is a little bit of a build around, but you can make her four work and get a lot of damage out of it. Her two is kind of just there. There's like implications for it in like ESO. You see a lot of like explosive ledger main builds with it. but her 2 isn't the greatest. I feel like Mirage's main thing now is that she kind of feels stale, you know? Like, I feel like I'm putting Mirage here, and this isn't to say like frames here are bad. Like, a lot of these frames here, I would still classify some of them as like some of the best in the game. Like, um, I think Titania personally is one of the best frames in the game. I think Frost is one of the best defense frames in the game. I think Trinity is one of the best supports in the game. That kind of thing. Um, Mirage, like, obviously is a really good character. I feel like her main thing now is that her identity is like so non-existent in my opinion. Like, we had like the standing in the light and the dark before, and that was like terrible. That was terrible. Genuinely, that wasn't good. That wasn't good. But I think what we could maybe do is kind of tweak her more so that she's kind of more about that thing, and maybe give like some more variety in her kit, so it's not just damage, 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 some more damage, some more damage. Like, maybe just like a little bit of utility would be nice, but other than that, she's doing okay. Not doing bad. Neja is great. Neja is weird because we had that little brief stint where we had the augment, and the augment was crazy. The augment was crazy, and then the augment got nerfed, and then it got buffed. But like, the augment was crazy, and like a lot of people were only playing Neja for that. As somebody who like plays Neja a lot, like, this is like the frame I just play when I just need to do missions. Neja is really good. Firewalker, which is the substance slot for most people. Firewalker is a really nice ability, gives you a speed buff, you get status cleanse. With the augment, you can like do stupid amounts of damage with it as a little build around, which is cool. The chakram is great. Damage vulnerability is super underrated. His 3 giving him the halo is really nice. And then the 4 is like nice CC that can help you like DPS, or you can like nuke with it. All that good stuff. Really fun character to play. Fits the supportive tank role. Not really support, but more like a tank role really well. Um, got a lot of good things going for them. I would say there's not really much you need to do with Neja. They're kind of just there, but just being there isn't a bad thing. Like, they have this really nice play style that's clearly defined as like the fast tank. So yeah, Neja's doing all right. Not bad. All right, we're starting to get there. Okay, Protea. Protea is really cool. It's like this little temporal gadget frame. Um, Before this year, I think I would probably put her here, but I think she got both of the augments this year. The 2 augments for her turret and her 4 are really nice. Um, her kit itself is like really nice. Like, her passive is amazing, and they're running for one of the best passives in the game. Her 1 and her 2 and her 3 are really nice abilities. And then like the whole like bad thing, quote unquote, about her was her 4 wasn't great. I think the augments really help with that front. Like, it makes it a really fun build around if you're into that kind of thing. Um, it's like definitely not a bad ability. It's just like kind of not for this game, if that makes any sense. Um, but yeah, especially when you build around it, you can make it pretty good. I think the only thing I would add to her now is make it so that her base 4 had like a couple more effects to it. Because as it stands now, it's like good in parentheses if we build into it, as opposed to good by itself and augments make it better. But yeah, basically it for Tia. She's really nice. I keep looking at these 3. Okay, Volt. This is like a hot take. Volt is like obviously like a really good frame, really good weapons platform. Speed is like one of the best abilities in the game. Shock Trooper is really nice. The shield is really nice. Um, I think what I would say about Volt, I would still put him here because I do think there's like more. Like, he's very close to being up here, but I'm gonna put him here only because I think that his 1 and his 4 kind of need to be looked at. For his 4, I think it's really easy. I think you take his 4 augment and just make his 4 augment what his 4 does. So that way it can be like, yeah, this is your like big CC slash defensive ability, and then like let his 4 augment do something else. That way there's more of an incentive to like use that ability. It like becomes a little bit more compelling. And then his one, I don't know what you could do with shock. Something I was thinking. So, Mag has this too. Mag's one has this like this secret little thing going on with it where it's like if you kill an enemy with Mag's one, it drops an energy orb. I think if Volt's one maybe was like enemies affected by shock like have a chance of dropping an energy orb, that would be pretty good for the ability. It probably wouldn't be that effect specifically wouldn't be as useful for players later in the game, but especially for early game players, that'll probably be really good. Especially since he's a starter, you know. So that was just my thinking, but other than that, Volt's like doing pretty well. I'm still putting him here just because I think having two abilities that are both like they're good with augment, I don't think that necessarily means you're near perfect. Like I think he should be here just because you can there's some ways that his oneness for can be better. Okay. Um oh man. Oh man. Oh man. Okay. Prefacing this because this is another little controversial one. So a lot of people think Banshee is bad. They think she's really, really bad. And a lot of people think Banshee's good and think she's really, really good. I think Banshee is like okay. Okay. So Banshee's whole thing is that she has sonar and she has silence. And those are like her two good things. Sonar, putting weak spots on enemies that's like moddable in terms of how much damage they do. Like I think on mine I do like 10x damage on weak points. Really cool. And then silence is like nice hard lockdown. Those abilities by themselves can kind of just carry. Those kind of just carry, to be honest. Like you can cast Sonic Boom to like Shield Gate, but those by itself kind of just carry. And a lot of people don't know that that can just carry. However, I think that just having abilities that carry your whole frame is well that's fine. It's fine. It's kind of similar to Volt. I guess it's funny that we did Volt right before cuz like her one with augment is like better, but it also it's just an armor strip. Like you're using your one with augment to armor strip and then like shield gate, and then your four is just like in the running for worst abilities in the game. And it's like she could do more. Like we can find ways to like make her do more. I'm actually a little leaning towards Trinity in general. Trinity, oh my god. Towards Banshee in general just getting a rework because even though I would say that Trinity I really want Banshee to be Trinity right now. Like Banshee is just Trinity right now. But even though like she can do all the content and she can level cap really easily and she can like boost the team's damage by a lot, I do think it's worth re-looking at what Banshee is because as a sound frame, she doesn't really feel like that. Like you kind of just do sonar and well, first of all, you like cast silence and then silence lasts for like what 40 seconds to a minute and then you like sonar at enemies and then you shoot the points and then like that's kind of like the most you're getting out of her design. Like I don't know. I feel like at least in cases like Volt, where he also has like two kind of dead abilities without augments, Volt still feels like this really fast electricity frame. Whereas oh my, I desperately want her to be Trinity. Banshee does not really feel like the sound, like kind of vibrations frame that she's supposed to be. Nyx. Okay, so we just got the Nyx augment not too long ago. Uh, Nyx, I want to say she's here. I want to say Nyx is like right here. They did a pretty bang up job with Nyx. Her kit feels really nice. Her one, which is like the slot that I think that most people are subsuming off of. Her one feels pretty nice. There's like a little bit of issues with like the AI of the enemies, but that's like always going to be a problem pretty much. I would want her to be able to mind control more than one guy. I think that would kind of help her. Maybe like give her three enemies, like cap it at like three enemies that she can have mind control. That'll be pretty cool. She can make a little army. Yeah, her one is pretty nice. Psychic bolts is like cracked. Psychic bolts is insane. Um, Chaos is still just as good as it was. Having radiation on it makes it even better. And then her four, uh, her 4 is pretty good, even without the augment. Because a lot of people use Assimilate, I believe. Even without Assimilate, her 4 is just like a good ability. So I think they did a pretty good job with her. I would say my only things that I would want to see, other than maybe like give her more summons that she can summon at once. Um, Arcane Kamisato is like bugged right now, and I would like it to not be bugged. And if you don't know what it does, it's every time your uh, every time your summon does damage, uh, you get stacking 6% strength, and it stacks up to 60. Okay, and then your summons get 20% movement speed, or it's attack speed, I think. Right? It does not. Well, on frames where it does work, after you cast one ability, that buff like goes away, and you have to build it back up. But which is one thing where I'm like, I'm not really a big fan of that. The other thing is that it just doesn't work on a lot of the mind control characters. So it doesn't work on Revenant. It doesn't work on Nyx. It doesn't work on Vauban's Tesla Nervos, which is really weird because they're like summons. They're like blatantly just summons. It works on a lot of clones. So with Equinox's augment and with Wukong, it works. Uh, what was there's another mind controllable. I think it's Zaku's Accuse. Might be. I don't know if it's Accuse or Deny. I think it's Accuse. I think Accuse doesn't work with it either. So it's just like weird code stuff that doesn't work with that, and I would like them to maybe fix that up. But other than that, Nyx is looking okay. Oh my god, Wukong. So Wukong's probably gonna get nerfed again. I don't know. We're gonna keep nerfing Wukong because he's the problem character. Okay, Wukong, ignoring like Slam Wukong, because believe it or not, Wukong has abilities. So a lot of people just go, you get on Wukong to do Spy Bolts. And I'm like, you could do that. You could do that. But Wukong is not a bad character. Like, his passive is pretty mid. Like, having extra lives is like cool, but just don't die forehead. But yeah, his passive is kind of mid. Clone is like as good as it was. Like, Clone is just really nice to just have out doing stuff. A good thing that I enjoyed that they added, his one has an augment where you can make the clone like CC enemies, which is pretty cool. Cloud Walker is really nice. Movement tool, healing tool, repositioning tool. Defy is nice. I wish Defy gave him DR as well, and it would be pretty loaded for him to have like DR and armor, like getting both of those at once. But I think it would really help because if he's supposed to be like health tanking, I think that would help him like a lot. And then uh, Iron Staff is not bad exalted. I just wish that I feel like it out of like a lot of the exalted abilities needs the new stuff maybe the most. Like it would benefit a lot from a lot of the new stuff. So yeah, Wukong is not looking bad. He's in a pretty good place. The only thing I would say is just like maybe like the general buffs to his Iron Staff. Like you can survive pretty well with Wukong. He has a lot of different like kinds of builds. He has like a really nice spot in like speedrunning missions. So yeah, Wukong's looking pretty alright. Saren's like obviously up here. She's amazing. All of her abilities are good. A lot of people like uh switch off of Molt, but Molt is not a bad ability. You can shield get with it. It's a cleanse. It's a very like it's a very specific type of ability that we don't see a lot in the game. I feel like where it's like I'm going to really selfishly like give myself these good things that you would expect to be like team wide buffs, but she's just like nah, doing my own thing. But yeah, her abilities are good. Um, she's pretty good. I think like maybe look at her passive. I think her passive is like randomly just really bad. I think it's like more status duration or something like that. So maybe just like look at her look at her passive and then we're chilling. We're chilling. Necros. Okay, so huh. Necros. Okay, so I this is one of those personal ones. I'm kind of in let's rework Necros at this point. So Necros is not bad. Necros is actually pretty decent. Soul Punch is like a little useless, and by a little I mean very useless. But Terrify is really nice. Desecrate is really good. Um, and then Shadows of the Dead is fine with an augment. I feel like the problem with Necros is that like without augments, he has like one and a half good abilities because Desecrate is like okay without an augment, and then Terrify is a good ability, and then Shadows of the Dead is kind of just like summon a bunch of guys. And then with augments, it's like Shadows of the Dead is like this really nice source of DR, and then Despoil is like amazing and lets you like double loot. I don't know. I feel like a rework is kind of in order at this point. His one still just doesn't. Soul Punch is so very bad. It's so bad. Um, Terrify is pretty decent as an armor strip. It's a big AoE armor strip, but it kind of just does that, which is fine. But then like you get to Desecrate, and Desecrate is just doubling loot, and it sounds crazy to go, it's only doubling loot, but then you look at like Korra and Hydroid who have comparable abilities, but they also like give them CC, and then like I don't know what the I think Hydroid he has like the Kraken, and then on Korra you get like the damage buff with your Whip Claw when you whip into it. And it's just like Desecrate kind of just like desecrates. And then Shadows of the Dead, I literally cannot tell you what it does when you don't have the augment on. Uh so I would like him to get reworked. He kind of feels he's cool. He's like as like the Necromancer character, he has like a really cool aesthetic. So I just wish that we can get like cooler abilities so it's not just like I get on Necros and then I don't die because I have like a bunch of health and armor on. Then I got this like damage reduction, and then like I got these summons, and they're gonna do shit for me, and I like run around like just using weapons and like terrifying enemies in the case where an enemy is a little too tanky, and that's kind of all I do. I don't know. I feel like there's more that we can do with his theme than what we have now. So I'm gonna put him in. We should maybe look at reworking him, but he's not bad. He's not bad. Okay. Um, Korra. Okay, so Korra like is literally the most boring frame in the game to me, but a lot of other people like Korra. She's obviously not bad, right? Korra is obviously not a bad character. Um, yeah, she's pretty good. The utility of having a companion is like really nice. Just having Venari there is like really good for her. Um, her one, her two, her four really good abilities. Strangle Dome is for loot and it's like really nice hard CC. Ensnare is nice CC and it gives you like the damage buff. Whip Claw is like your character. That's like who Korra is. Korra is Whip Claw. And like Venari by itself is kind of mid, but with like the augment, but Venari Bodyguard, you can like keep yourself alive pretty well. And like randomly you can make her a speed frame if you like build strength because she just has like a speed multiplier while Venari's out, I think. But yeah, Core is pretty cool. I think if anything we should change, we should just like buff the Venari ability itself to make it more usable. I can't see people like actually using the Venari ability, but just making it like a little better for those who do would go a long way. Avara. Oh my god, I love Avara so much. And then Cyto 9 came out and it really made me like rethink everything. So Avara has become a little bit more popular with people doing level cap cascade uh because she has like a crazy headshot multiplier while she's in her invis. That's good. That's like really nice. And there's like a lot of cool stuff with Avara. Like her arrows, even though like the only arrows that really matter are like sleep arrow and stealth arrow because you can stealth like other players and like certain targets and things like that where you can like stealth a specific area and then stand in it and do whatever you need to do. I like doing it and then like doing like whatever my setup process is and then like hopping out of it. Like that's cool. Um and like the dash wire arrow is kind of like mid. Like you can make it decent. Like dash wire arrow is good with the augment, but it's not even bad really. Like it's not. I might be coping. Like stop me if this is cope. Okay, stop me if this is cope. It's not even bad because it's like, oh yeah, this is like a line that I can just put up so I can just have more movement for this zone. Like that's very unique and it's not bad. But with the augment, that's when it kind of becomes, oh yeah, this is a good thing. Navigator is like a weird build around, and I don't have a problem with Navigator actually. I think Navigator as like this really weird, like I'm this is my Avara Navigator build is like really cool. So I'm not gonna hate on that. I hate Prowl. I'm like so tired of acting like I'm okay with Prowl. Like I do not like having to use like yellow shards not for casting speed but because I need parkour speed, and like I like using yellow shards for that, but I'm using that just so I can move the fuck around, dude. That's so lame. That's so I'm so not a fan of that. Like I don't know how anybody can enjoy like going, "Oh yes, let me put like three parkour shards plus the Praetos and like I'm gonna like roll around as Avara." And then you look at Cyto 9 and he's like, hee hee, I'm just invis permanently. And you look at Ash and he's like, hee hee, 50 energy and I'm invis. And then you look at Loki and he's just like, I'm invis, like basically forever. And it's like, oh, let me get on Avara and I'm gonna get on my invis. And it's like, oh, okay. Like I don't think, especially with Sight out now and the fact that like everybody can get his invis, I think if she was just able to go invis and could move normally, that would be like that, that would be so nice. And then her four, I don't know the numbers, but I don't think it's a far fetch to say that that Artemis Bow is in the running for worst exalted ability in the game. Um, I would really like them to like kind of relook at Artemis's bow's damage. It might benefit from a lot of the new stuff, but just please buff Artemis bow. Avara in general, I don't even think she. I let me. This is maybe hyperbolic to go. She needs a rework. Just like some buffs, give or no. I'm gonna say a rework because my version of Avara that I want is like the Nyx Trinity rework type. And if those are like called reworks, then I'm calling what I want for Avara rework. But yeah, that's her. Anaros. Okay, Anaros just got changed. So this is literally the only thing they need to do to Anaros. Well, two things. One, one, he's really tanky, right? Please, please. People say this. I think Cool Kid made a video on this, but people say this all the time that it is okay that he does not have DR because he has a bunch of armor. You do not know what you're talking about. You have no idea what you're talking about. Having a bunch of armor, but literally no DR is like so pain. That's so pain. That's so pain. It's so pain. Please give Anaros some form of DR of some kind. I would love it. And the other thing is give him like more things that benefit from strength. The Sandcats are cool. I was thinking that maybe something they could do is make it so your strength determines how many Sandcats you can have out at a time. That would be pretty nice. So that way you can like do this really weird build around with like the new stuff. Cause like something I was experimenting with is like, oh, you get what is it, 72% strength from the new Arcane Bellicross, and then you can get another 60% strength with the Kamizato because his Sandcats count as summons. It would be so cool if you can get like higher max summons by building into more strength. And that way you would have a reason to take advantage of all these like strength arcanes. Because it's like now for right now it's like, oh, you get a little bit more armor with his three, and then like the damage of your Sandcats is a little higher and that kind of thing. But I think if you just had a bigger like potency kind of style thing where it's like, oh, I'm getting more of a benefit, kind of similar to Trinity's Link, I think that would go a long way to make him feel a lot better. He's pretty good now. He's not bad, pretty good. But yeah, that's just what I was thinking for him. I need water. Okay, Goss. Yeah, I don't think there's a lot that needs to be said. Goss is like consistently one of the best design frames in the game. Anything that I could say about Goss would likely be incorrect because the Goss master race like knows this character like the back of their hand. So yeah, Goss is like perfect. He's really good. Uh red line augment when DE. Please give us red line augment. That just gives him every buff in the game. Okay, Garuda, same kind of deal. Garuda's like great. Blood Altar is like maybe something they can look at and make it better, but it's not even like Blood Altar is bad. Like Blood Altar isn't even a bad ability at the end of the day. It's not bad. It's just that there's other ways of doing what it does. And so like a lot of people's builds like just don't need it. Blood Altar isn't even like bad. So she's pretty good. Pretty good frame. Gara, this is weird. I haven't played Gara in a bit, it feels like. So Gara's whole thing is pretty cool of being like a more offensive version of Frost in a lot of ways. And like stacking up her damage is like cool. It's like a cool thing to do. But the stacking process is like really long and you just kind of lose everything. I'd like to see a buff to where she like doesn't just lose everything when a small interaction that's beyond her control happens. Like it's so sad when you have like an a million damage what is it, scattered lash, a million damage scattered lash, when and then like an Eximus or a nullifier like shows up and just goes fuck you, and then you just lose everything and you're like damn, I love this character. That's probably what I would do for her, but she's in a pretty good place. Maybe just move her up to here, like I don't know. I feel like right here is a little bit more because I feel like that's more of a pressing issue than a lot of the other things that a lot of other characters have. Mesa, Mesa's like doing good. Mesa's doing pretty good. Um, your like main thing is pretty good. Her one, which is what a lot of people like subsume off, isn't even bad. Like her one is pretty decent. Uh, her two and her three are like really nice. Damage buffs and survivability tools. And then Peacemaker is like her main thing, and Peacemaker still does like crazy amounts of damage. Ace is like same as always kind of style thing. Same as always. There's not much you need to do with her anymore. Uh, like she can use some buffs, but it's not like she's fiending for them. She's doing all right. Octavia. Okay. So a lot of people want Octavia to be reworked because there's like she has this stigma of you just do the thing and then you sit in a corner and you teabag. I don't know, man. I'm kind of like with it. This might be like super unpopular. I feel like Octavia is like at most you can say if now here's an argument I'm kind of for. You can say she can get reworked because you want her to be more of like a DDR like traditional bard style character where I'm like giving everybody these like she already does like the buffs though. But maybe if she was like more active, like I need to like do a little rhythm game like mid mission, that could be cool. But I don't know, like for what their version of a bard is, she's doing pretty good. But if you want a different style of bard, you can maybe say this. And like a lot of people will just go, "Oh, it's so hard to keep her buffs up." If you have like a decent amount of duration, you can like teabag like two or three times, and you'll just like be invis for like 30 seconds. It's like ridiculous. I think she has like one of the highest base invis in the game. But yeah, Octavia's I think she can go here, but I will accept like the argument of if you want her to be a different style of what her archetype is, then she could be here. But I think for what they want her to be, she's right here. Valkyr. Okay. Oh, Valkyr is so weird because like I want to just say she's trash all the time, and then I'll like randomly like see something that's just insane with Valkyr. Like the other week I was like Valkyr is really bad, and then I saw what prolonged paralysis does in combination with the fact that she has like a I think it's 64 times ground finisher multiplier, which is like pretty nice. That's pretty nice. I'm going to say that she's still going to need a rework. And I do like I can say that yes, she is like invul and she has a nice attack speed buff, and she can get a bunch of armor. But it's like it's so weird how some things in her kit just conflict. Like you're invul when you're in Hysteria, but you're still getting like an armor buff from Warcry. Warcry itself is like a glorified attack speed buff. Um, like paralysis is like cool CC. I'll give paralysis that it's like actually pretty decent CC. I feel like it should group without an augment. But yeah, paralysis isn't bad, and hysteria is okay, but you kind of need like the augment. If you well, you need the augment if you don't want your energy economy to be really bad. But if you use the augment, you have like prolonged periods of times where you're just not in your four. So there's just a lot of like clunk to her. I want to say that I want to see them kind of iron out. Oh my god, oh my god, there's so many left. Okay, Mag, not much to say. Mag is like amazing right now. Uh, Pull is like terrible though. Pull is terrible. Pull is genuinely like not good. And her passive is also pretty not great. Um, she's still amazing. She's like doing really well for herself. It's just those two things that needs to be buffed. Her passive like functionally does nothing. It's like vacuum but worse. And then pull is like I pull thing to me. So yeah, pull isn't even like terrible. It's like it's terrible in context of she also has access to her two, and it's not like the best like grouping ability ever. It just like pulls them in front of you. Zephyr, yeah, Zephyr's perfect. You don't need to touch Zephyr. If you touch Zephyr, she might be like the best frame in the game. She's already like secretly the best, but we don't need people knowing that. Zaku. Zaku's looking pretty nice. Um, Zara is like a really nice damage buff. Uh, the guns are really cool. Their four is really nice. A lot of people only use gaze, but accuse and deny like aren't the worst abilities ever. You can like do a build around with deny to make it like an ability DPS, and then accuse is like light CC. It's not the best, but it's there. Um, I'll kind of say Zaku's like up here. Zaku, there's not much you need to change. Oh, oh. We're getting into like the specialist characters pretty soon. Okay. Mm, Jade is someone I feel like I have like a decent amount of experience with Jade. So I don't know what public opinion on Jade is. I remember when she came out, everybody was like, "Oh my god, she's so broken." And I'm kind of like at the point where I'm like, Jade is like Equinox, but doesn't make me want to tear my hair out trying to build them. Jade is pretty cool. You have like the standard I'm gonna get on my four and do all this stuff, and then you have the you have like the just I'm not gonna use my four and I'm gonna just use like her good stuff, which is cool. She's like a bad weapons platform if you don't use her four, I wanna say. Like I shouldn't even say bad. Like you've got damage vulnerability with your one, and then you've got like an armor strip with your three, and you have a damage buff with your two. Um I wanna put her here. I think she's pretty one note, but I think as she starts getting augments, that can start opening up playstyles. Right now, she's kind of like use your four and like run around and like shoot, or don't use your four and like run around and shoot. But as she like gets stuff, I feel like she's gonna get way more interesting. Chroma, Chroma. Yeah, he's a lost. He's a lost. Like I understand. I do truthfully, I do understand that his tune is three. Like when like you get everything set up, you can get ludicrous amounts of damage. You can get so much damage out of this. But his one and his four are genuinely terrible. He doesn't feel like the thing he's supposed to be, and even then, his two and his three still have like a bunch of clunk involved, and it's like, something I want them to kind of do, like my pitch for a rework, right, is his one, right, his one, instead of like losing access to your guns, he just like spews out that element all over the place while you're like shooting and stuff. That could be pretty good. And then like depending on what element you're on, you get different effects on your 3 and your 4. Your 4 right now, depending on your effect, just changes what damage type it does. I was thinking like your 4 becomes like this like big dragon. Like you can still keep like the dragon skin, but like have like the pelt or whatever it's supposed to be. Like have the armor be like, oh yeah, this is just gonna like roam around, and while you're in range of it, you get like these crazy buffs for like slaying the dragon. And then like the spirit of the dragon is gonna be going around and like doing all these like weird shits. Like I don't know. You can like pick a lot of things for it to do. And then maybe Vex armor can have differing effects depending on the element, as opposed to being relatively static like it is now. Oberon. Oberon is weird, man. Like I heard somebody once go, you can make Oberon better by adding like 3 zeros to all his abilities, and then he's like pretty decent. Because what's he do? He like puts the grass on the floor and you get the status immunity, and then if you use his 4, you're getting like a bunch of extra armor. It's weird, right? Because he's supposed to be like this paladin sort of like support. Like he's supposed to be like this paladin, and his support is interesting, but like stuff like his 3, like not a the other people on your team don't really need that. That's not the form of support they really want. And even when it is, like when that's good, it's fine. Like with Wisp, it's okay that she gives the team like health over time. But the reason why that's good is because you're doing that and you have other things on that one ability. Like Reservoirs doesn't just do that. Like Oberon's 3 is if health moat was just a thing by itself. Like one of your abilities was just health moat, which is like okay, but it's not like great. It's not great. For himself, when you're doing like weird builds where you're using like quick thinking, it can be pretty sweet. I won't even lie. It is kind of sweet. And you just like walk around at like 2 HP, and then you go to 300, and then you go to 2, and you go to 300, and you go to 2, and you're like, yeah, I'm him. Like that's pretty cool. Yeah, there's weird stuff going on with him. I think a rework is in order. I think maybe just looking at what he does and what his design is supposed to be could help him a lot, because he doesn't really feel like what he's supposed to be. Oh man, I'm gonna get called out for being a fraud. Okay. Dagoth is I think Dagoth is like the most boring character in the game. Dagoth is that a is that a hot take? Are we still coping on Mesa as the most boring? I think Dagoth is like really boring. She doesn't really like do anything. She's kind of just there, you know? She's kind of there. Um, I don't know. She's not bad. Well, I shouldn't say she doesn't do anything. She doesn't do anything unique, right? Like you can spread Vile around, and then you have this unique status, not really status, but mechanic called Doom, where it'll like re-trigger like your ticks, which is kind of cool. You can like spread Doom around to enemies, and you can pop your 3 and you have like all this crit, and you can like drop health and energy orbs. But only when you die, or you can use the augment, and then you can just do that and be invul. You can use your 4 to like kill enemies, and it's like she's not bad. She's not a bad character. There's not I can't think immediately off the top of my head what she needs, right? She can survive with her 3 augment pretty well, and then you just shield gate when you're not in your 3. Something that she does do well, which I think they need to do with Valkyr's 4 augment. It has this mechanic where every kill that you get while you're like in the cooldown, every kill that you get lowers the cooldown. I think they need to add that to Valkyr's 4 augment. But yeah, it's kind of just she doesn't really stand out. She doesn't really have her own identity. I think maybe changing her so that she does have that could be good for her. It's weird. I want to say that she's down here, but realistically, if I put somebody like Jade up there, I feel like maybe she needs to be there too. but still, Jade still, like, you play as Jade and you kind of feel like an angel in some ways. Like, you're flying around and you're like sending down judgments and you're giving like these team-wide buffs. You're looking down at like your enemies and like debuffing them. Like, she still patently feels like an angel. uh like, a lot of these characters feel like what they're supposed to be. Of Degoth does not feel like a headless horseman. This is probably going to be like a character in this tier where I'm like, I want them to kind of change them to be more like what you think they would be. Like, you look at a lot of these frames up here and they feel like they're power fantasy, right? Like, they super feel like they're power fantasy. Like, Protea feels like a time traveling engineer, right? uh Kalervo, like, he feel like a lot of his aesthetics have to do with like knives and being betrayed and like using these daggers and shit. Wukong feels like the Monkey King. You're literally just doing shit just to do it. You feel like a custom character from some of the stuff he does. Uh, like, Steinax feels like Spartan. Jade, or not Jade, but Dagoth just doesn't feel like a Dullahan. Atlas, okay, yeah, we're gonna put Atlas here. Um, there's like so much to talk about with Atlas. Atlas is like so weird, man. Like, his main thing is using his one, which is his pseudo exalt, and doing a fuck ton of damage. Okay, cool. You got the damage, great. At what cost? Well, it only took us using a incarnate melee to give us better stats on our stat stick, better stats on our exalt because we have 5% crit and status chance for whatever reason. So now that we have the ability to either crit or do status effects, where are we at now? So we can use tectonics and we have the worst. I take back what I said about like another ability being the worst. About Banshee's 4. Tectonics is actually the worst ability in the game. Tectonics is so ass. Um, and then you can use Petrify, and then you'll use Petrify like 50 times. Uh, everywhere, and use like all that energy because it's like a 75 energy cast, using tectonics all over the place, or not tectonics, you're using petrify to like stop the enemies, which is good. And then you get like the damage buff with your one. Cool. And you got the rumblers, and the rumblers do functionally nothing except dropped rubble. And it's like you're doing all this and it's all just fluff to use your one, but it's not good fluff, you know? Like, Baruch has decent fluff. Like, like, for a frame that's just gonna be like using Desert Wind, he's got decent fluff. Excalibur has decent fluff. Korra has decent fluff. Like, like, you get on Atlas and you're just like, I got Landslide, and then I got the abilities that like vary in terms of quality. Like, my best other ability is like a stun that buffs my damage, which is good, but I have to cast it like 50 times. And it's like, uh, let's just like ground up. We're gonna keep landslide. We're gonna like change petrify into like a duration based ability, and then we're gonna like just completely redo tectonics and rumblers. Lavos. Okay, I'm not like the biggest Lavos expert. I'm gonna be so honest with you guys. I'm not like a Lavos expert. I'm not a Lavoser, if you will. Um, in my opinion, Lavos is pretty good. Lavos, I feel like people only really look at him for his augment, which gives him whatever status effect he wants just on his weapons for free. I feel like a lot of people look at Valence formation and that's it. Um, from what I've played of Lavos, Lavos is like a really fun caster frame. Like, he's really fun. It feels like you're always trying. He feels like an alchemist. You're like trying to mix these like colors together. I just called them colors. Oh my god. You're mixing the elements together and you're trying to put like as many status effects on the enemies as possible and like lowering your cooldowns. Like, he feels really cool. He feels like you're playing a different game with how you're like managing your cooldowns, especially with his one augment. I will say his one augment does feel like a little bit of a band-aid. I feel like maybe Ophidian Bite should just do that without an augment, but he feels good. He feels really fun to pilot. Well, here we are. This like these last five are like literally the frames that like specific people play. And like, if you know, you know, and if you don't, you don't. Um I'm gonna be so honest, I don't feel comfortable talking about Vauban. Let me like add Vauban's own tier. I'm no expert. I'm no expert. I don't know a lot about Vauban, but I do think that just on surface level, like outside looking in, Vauban could probably use some buffs. Same with Limbo. Vauban, well, Limbo, I do know. What you need to do with Limbo is you need to make it so that all players can just interact with his mechanic without having to like go through hoops, just so that Limbo players can play their character in pubs and not feel like horrible people because everybody just hates them for no reason. Like I think Limbo would like work way better if people could just use him. If people could just play Limbo, I think his the opinion on him would be way better because his abilities aren't even bad, you know? Like Banish is kind of let me not speak on things I'm not that's not for me. That's not for me. But like what he does isn't even terrible. It's just that it's so hard for people in this team game to interact with him while he's trying to do his thing. So it just makes people go, "Oh my god, there's a Limbo here. Let me just leave." That's not good. That's not good. Vauban, it just looks to me like he needs like some quality of life buffs on all his abilities. Uh I don't think he's as bad as people say he is. I think there's a lot of cool things that you can do with him, especially with like Flechette Orb and Tesla Nervos. There's a lot of cool stuff. There's also a lot of like joke shit and his like Tether. Yeah, all right. Fucking Speed Booster. Oh my god. But yeah, uh, Vauban. I'm not gonna touch that. I'm not gonna speak on him. Sevi. He's weird. I'm gonna put him here. So here. I think what we need to do with Sevagoth is Reap and Sow is the thing that people are doing. We need to like take Gloom, and on Sevagoth specifically, he regen shields and health. He regen shields and health. Okay, I think that's the thing to do. He works better with shields anyway. He is not built to be health tanking. Let it be shields too. As much as I don't like Gloom, mostly because I don't like the slow it provides. Let it be shields for him. It would make him so much better. And then like make the shadow have like better like tanking stuff. I'm not saying the shadow should be immune, but if the shadow was immune, oh my god. Like, oh my god, I feel like that would help him so much. Because and then even then when you get in the shadow, it just feels like you're playing Sevagoth. You're just playing Sevagoth, but as the shadow. Because you're kind of doing the same thing. And then Equinox, rework me. Equinox isn't even bad. I am just a firm believer that you should be able to mod day form and night form separately. It kind of makes no sense. Like you can do it for Sevagoth, you can mod him in the shadow separately and the claws, but you can't mod Equinox day and Equinox night separately. You can mod exalted weapons, but you can't mod like it's so weird. Like that would help so much in terms of builds because they want different stats. They want to they have different goals they're trying to accomplish. And right now it feels like a lot of people. I will say they are just like hard. This is a skill issue. They are hard to play, but I don't think they're hard to play for the right reasons. I think if you went with the change to let them build day and night forms separately, they would still like have a learning curve to them because you're like transferring between the two. But I just think that it's so hard to build them because you're trying to build for these two aspects that want different things and are trying to do two different objectives. And then it just becomes, oh, if you try to mix them, it doesn't feel as good. So you have to like spec into one thing, and then other parts of your kit doesn't feel as good as it would on, like, say, Night Form. So yeah, I would like that. Also, their passive is terrible. A lot of these frames have bad passives in this tier, but Equinox's passive is like especially terrible because it's like 10% equilibrium or something like that. It's so bad. Oh my god, I made it through all of these. Oh, oh. Yeah, these are like generally my thoughts. Obviously, these aren't ordered. I think we're good to just have this many characters feel this good. I think this is what 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Wait, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, 22, 26 to feel like amazing. And then most of these are just like a few changes that I would want for buffs, and like a lot of these guys are just like reworks, but it's okay. Um we did it. We did it. But yeah, these are generally my thoughts. If you have like any opinions on this, I know I was yapping for like a long ass time. I'm hoping this wasn't like trillions of hours. Um, but yeah, if you have any opinions on this, just like tell me about it. I'm actually like pretty open to other people's ideas when it comes to balance. But yeah.